Good evening. Good evening, YouTube. ST. Is anybody out there? My eyeballs look creepy. Tonight's rant, as promised. I've returned to talk about Crowley. I guess I've been doing a lot of occult YouTubes now. Tonight we talk about Crowley. Crowley rhymes with holy. Mr. Actually, Ozzy Osbourne says Crowley. It probably sounds better in the song, but as far as I understand, his name was Crowley, rhymes with holy. Mr. Crowley. As we said in the last one, he came from a strictly, very strict religious family of the Plymouth Brethren. He came into money at 21 years old. He came into big money. The family was in alcohol, the Crowleys. After his father died, I think he stayed with the extremely religious uncle. When he was educated, everything was biblical. But he himself said when he read the Bible, he decided to join the other side, which is creepy in itself. He identified with the Satan character, and he was a show-off, at least according to Gary Lachman in his version of the life of Crowley. There's a lot of magician people say, he's misunderstood and this and that, but there's one part where that, as a young lad, he came to sound like kind of a nasty dude in that he took things literally. Again, according to the Lachman book, which I will leave in the liner notes, that he came upon a cat and tested it to see if it literally had the 9 lives. So he hung it and poisoned it and chucked it out a window and all this stuff. So he definitely had that side to him. Yes. He was he was a he was well, I'll get on to the point where he entered the world of the occult. He in London he approached a man who was known to be involved with alchemy, who in turn introduced him to another man named Jones, who was a member of the famous Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The leader of it was a man by also well known in the occult, of course, a man by the name of MacGregor Mathers. He was the leader of the order, if my memory serves me correct. There also was a oh, I lost one viewer. Shit. Sorry. There also was the famous poet Yeats was a member. Crowley was also a poet. He introduced Yeats to some of his poetry, and apparently Yeats wasn't impressed, so this pissed Crowley off. They confronted each other. The writer Yeats apparently didn't really care for Crowley. So at the same time, when Crowley came into some dough, some money, some cash, a stash of cash, he bought an excellent apartment in London on Chancery Lane, I think it was. So this goes into the another evidence that he may have been into the darker stuff. As again I said, some people are into Magick with a K. Ball Type said he's misunderstood, or that wasn't his means, but he had a a room in the apartment for the or a temple, as I would say, set up for white magic. But then he had another room. If I can remember right, it was a secret room, and that had trappings and images of black magic. So his goal, of course, was to rise up higher in the famous Order of the Golden Dawn. At some point, he was also, I think, possibly on his trip to Mexico, he was initiated into the Masonic orders. And Crowley was obviously a whiz, a natural at this magic. So he rose quickly to the 33rd degree, or he was initiated to the 33rd degree in Scottish Rite Masonry. So he was, and in the Order of the Golden Dawn, he was in a struggle with. He was looking to, of course, become the number one. So before that, he was a mountain climber, and he had befriended a man 17 years his senior named Eckenstein, who was also he was a legendary mountain climber, but he was also familiar with these occult arts. And he commented to Crowley that you need some focus. And Crowley had a lot of respect for this mountain climber gentleman. And he was taught by him visualization and concentration, sophisticated visualization and concentration exercise by this mountain climber, Eckenstein, Mr. Eckenstein. I forget his first name. So that's Crowley's all about adventures. I think as a youth he was also originally very inspired by the author of the Arabian Nights, Sir Richard Burton, who was also who was a world traveler and an incredible adventurer that he came up with those. The Arabian Nights was a huge set of stories at the time. It still is pretty big. So Crowley kind of resembled that traveler, occultist, and at some point a chess player. He proved to be very good at chess, but he found that the other chess masters and people in that milieu, Crowley thought they were losers. So apparently, although he was in competition with him, he very much was more into the occultist. So he was also a noted mountain climber, as I mentioned. So with Eckenstein, they actually climbed the K2. Which is the second highest mountain peak in the world, but said to be the most difficult and dangerous. Although Mount Everest is taller and also extremely difficult, apparently the K2, the conditions and whatnot, is actually the most difficult for the mountaineers. Forgive me if you know all this Crowley stuff, but we must go through this to try to build. And I don't know why I'm doing this again. Oh yeah, I guess because one of my vlogs that people sort of dug consisted of a description of a rite that he did in the desert. Okay, so when he came into the inheritance money, so he bought the legendary. I have got one follower tonight. He bought the legendary Boleskine house on Loch Ness Lake. Indeed. Which was creepy in itself. And he engaged in a rite there, which was indeed risky. Which he would be attempting to make contact with his guardian angel. If you can bear with me a moment, I keep forgetting it's a book that I've just recently wait a minute, bear with me. I will have it in the liner notes, but I don't want to completely butcher the pronunciation. What am I doing? Well, anyway, it's the Abrahamic rite by a rabbi who was from Worms, Germany, translated over and published by MacGregor Mathers of the Hermetic Golden Dawn. How I could forget the name of the book when I just read it, I don't know. Because it's a kind of hyphenated version of Abraham. Damn. The Boleskine House. The Boleskine Manor. Okay, so in any case, I will leave the notes about it there. But the book of Abra-Melin. Why can't I pronounce? Anyway, this grimoire would allow you to come in contact with your holy guardian angel. It's an 18-month rite consisting of six moons. People like the occultist and filmmaker Kenneth Anger said that it was extremely dangerous for Crowley to stop this operation. Apparently, Mathers requested him to return to the headquarters of the Golden Dawn, and he was politics amongst the secret society. He wanted Crowley's help, his money, his help. And what Anger and others have said is that Crowley made a huge mistake in not finishing this rite, because I mean, they have said his purposes were benevolent, to reach out to this holy guardian angel for purposes of helping humanity. But that he opened the doorway to communicating with these entities, and he didn't do the banishing ritual, the finishing rituals. And thus that's harmful to those of us on this plane of existence, and of course in the particular epicenter of this event, which was the Boleskine House. Thus it became haunted, although Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin said the place was already haunted. Nevertheless, I'm sure it became a lot more haunted. In fact, people claim that that is the reason for, in the 1930s, the sightings of this tremendous Loch Ness monster. So you have probably one of the creepiest houses in all of the British, Scottish Empire. And you have the wickedest man in the world, the Beast, 666, Aleister Crowley, Perturobo, I who endure, however it translates. Doing this right. So it's hard to say which one is creepier. The one where he went out into the desert with Victor Newberg, or right in his own mansion when because you have to, when you're doing this right, you have to bind these tremendous demons. I think Belial and so forth. I will leave in the liner notes. Give me a minute. Give me a bloody minute. The Book of the Sacred Magic of Abra-Melin the Mage. That's just another. The Abra-Melin contemporary. Okay, so this is one of the most famous rites you can do of Kabbalistic magic. So Jimmy Page's friend became the caretaker of the house, and there's a number of documentaries and books where he says that it was haunted as hell. Apparently, if you look it up, it was it burnt down in 2015. People in the area complain that the place dark clouds over the Boleskine house. People driven to madness. It's like Scottish guys like, don't go up there. It's crap. Now, Matt, I've just read the parts of the translated book by Mathers. In it, he says if you're doing this right, it's got to be in it's got to be in an abode that's consecrated, a house that's consecrated. So, based on that, what he says, it wouldn't matter if Crowley didn't exactly finish it up, which is weird. In other words, Mathers says you don't need to do a banishing thing because this rite has to be done in a completely consecrated house. And it's 18 months. You know, it's like I said, it's almost as creepy as the one as his attempt at making contact with Corazon. Corazon, the demon Corazon. Nobody on to talk to tonight. Crap. All right, well, I'm going to finish up now. I'll get back to you for part 2 tomorrow night. Take care, you guys.